Hello, and welcome to the Old Farm Bus Podcast. This is the Back of the Bus session.
Hello and welcome to the Old Farm Bus Back of the Bus Sessions podcast. I am buzzing for today because I have got my mate in, Mark Grist.
Hey Mikey, nice to be here. Oh, nice to be back.
It's really good to have you back, mate.
Yeah, it's cool.
I'm glad we started this podcast because we were nattering.
Oh yeah. So
We're going deep.
Yeah, it's about a 2-hour drive to get here. So I spend most of that 2-hour drive just kind of
Podcasts as well, and
just listening to things, but then also kind of buzzing. And I think I get out of the car, and as soon as something about Mikey and his energy that just means that when we get together, we're just like, right, let's start chatting. Let's go.
So, mate, how long do you think it's been since you've been to the farm? About nearly a year?
Yeah, probably about a year.
Wow.
The last time I was here, the reason was because we were working on that book. We're getting young people to create their own poems and raps. We're putting their lyrics and their poetry into a book. That was amazing, that project.
And maybe you came a bit after that then.
I did,
actually.
yeah.
So
yeah.
it might not be
I
quite
ran
a year
some Dungeons
now.
and Dragons for them as well.
They love that, man. They literally don't stop talking about that.
It was pretty cool.
And
It was
because of
full
that,
on. Yeah.
We've got a Dungeons and Dragons guy now.
Oh,
yeah,
cool.
yeah. They formulated their little group because of you, and then I was like, we're not stopping that. They need it, so they've got one at the top of the red bus now.
That's amazing. I think I as someone that likes storytelling and playing games and things like that, I think Dungeons and Dragons in the 5th edition that's out at the moment is one of the best ways for people to just get together and muck about telling stories. Yeah.
Well, man, I want to get into your present day, what you're up to, and projects, but it is quite mesmerising, you as a person, but the journey that you've been
this
on.
This is why I make the 2-hour drive.
Why, yeah, Yoda. Well, what is your timeline? As in, you've done poetry, you've done teaching, you've done Dungeons and Dragons and Game Master, and
Yeah.
where does your heart lie? Is it just in everything? Do you just want to play for a living? Is that what you want to do?
It's pretty much it. Yeah, I think so. I
Podcast.
Yeah, I don't know. I had great teachers when I was growing up, and really, I think I was at my most excited and happy when we were like playing with language and English lessons, or playing games in the playground and stuff like that. And I just think for me, when I became a teacher, that's what I was interested in, is kind of playing with language. I also think, like, fundamentally, it seems kind of apparent to me at the base level, like any learning, the biggest resistance to learning at all and growth at all tends to be fear. And play is one of the best ways to kind of remove fear. And so when I'm teaching, or when I was a teacher, which I did for like 5 years, a secondary school English teacher, games were a very important part of what we did. I mostly worked with, I'd say particularly maybe boys who were quite afraid in many ways of showing their writing skills. They would never pretend to be bad at football, but they might pretend to be not as good at poetry or something like that.
Yeah.
I thought it was kind of interesting. And so what I did was try and find ways to play with language or to remove fear from the classroom. Sometimes by reducing, putting like tight time constraints on a task, or making something a bit silly, or just finding different ways to remove the fear from things. And when I left teaching and I started rap battling, again, it's kind of an environment that can be a lot of fear. I didn't find it that scary because I was making all these games about how I was kind of writing my rap battle bars. And yeah, I think I miss teaching a lot, and I love games. I love that people develop these rules for a box of something that they send to another country, and you open it up, and if you follow their guidance, you'll have loads of fun with your friends, and maybe learn something about each other, or kind of, do all this fun. So I love games and the space it provides for us, and I think often we underestimate the importance of making something fun. Like my school that I taught at was the only school in the country when I was a teacher there, that in the mission statement for the school and what our education plan was, that had the word fun.
Really?
Yeah, and the only school in the country had the word fun in our mission
I saw
statement.
another one recently, and it said happy. 98% of the kids, I wonder what happens to the other 2%, but are happy in this school environment.
Yeah.
So
we
I
had
thought
to,
that was
on
lovely.
our lesson plan box,
Instead of Ofsted.
our lesson plan boxes, we had a section where we had to fill in, where we had to kind of sort of talk about how we'd considered how we could make the lessons fun, where we could. And obviously you can't always. If you're doing just essay work in preparation for an exam, there's probably not going to be a huge amount of fun in there. But what you can do is you can kind of have a bit of a laugh with the students as you're kind of like getting everyone set into place, have a bit of a chat, finding out what's going on that's making people happy that week. There's different ways of
You've
like
not,
making people happy.
Stumbled across a friend of mine called Dave Keelan, have you, on your journeys?
I don't know. I don't think so, but maybe.
He's cool. He just reminds me of you very much
Oh,
as
really?
well. Really
Oh, cool.
cool energy.
Oh,
He's a
nice.
comedian,
Yeah.
but he goes into different schools and really works with teachers. But his motto is school should have a ring to it, which is relevant, interesting, naughty, and a giggle. And
I like that. I like that a lot.
That's really good acronym, isn't it?
I like that a lot. So I guess that's just what I've been into.
With the element of fear and play, how do you suggest for young people or any person actually? I'm part of this. I went to Bristol recently and went to Wake the Tiger. Have you heard of that? So Boomtown put on an amazing show, don't they? And all the people that are involved in Boomtown have got this massive building in Bristol. It's on the outskirts and it's just a crazy fest. A great exhibition, but also within it is some drama. And there's actors going in, and if you immerse yourself in it more, it's very fun. But you just see a lot of rigid adults all around going, "Oh, what act?" Becoming like it's a different person.
Yeah,
and I was a bit here and there. I was trying my best, but there was a feeling inside that was going, "Don't get too involved, Mikey, or reserve yourself." How do you?
We get all this armor put on us. You can see it in secondary schools.
Ego, isn't it? It's
Well, you can. I feel like you can feel it in year 9 in school. Once you got year 7s,
You're so true.
total fearless. Like they're so malleable and up for it. And often I'm amazed by what we expect our year 7s to do in a school. You know, sit down and just write. Just do this. You know. However you're feeling, whatever's going on at home, when you've come today, sit down here and write me a poem and give them 10 minutes, they'll write it. They'll just go for it.
Yeah.
It's incredible. And then as we get older, it gets about year 9, I tend to find I love working with year 9s and year 10s. It drops off a little bit in year 10, this feeling, but there's this kind of real intensity of like the armor's up. Oh my goodness, I don't want to talk about feelings. I don't want to risk sticking out at all, or standing out from other people. There's a lot of like pressure and bullying, both face to face and online, and anyone who stands out can get shot down. So you get into about year 9, everyone kind of gets a bit nervous. But I find that adults, we've got that same armor at year 9, kind of in a way. And whenever I run any of my workshop activities that I run with younger people for adults, oh gosh, you can feel the stress and the tension in adults. In the first 5 or 10 minutes of a workshop, just trying to take that armor off and be okay.
Where do you think that builds from in this? Is it our society? Because you go and do a lot of travelling, so is there more friction when you're told to do something here, or more barriers up and boundaries?
I don't know. I think there's a lot of desire in all of us, myself included, because I have troubles when I'm not writing and I can feel myself procrastinating. And if I really boil it down, it's probably that I'm afraid of throwing myself into a piece of work, because what if it's not as good as anything else I've written in the past? What if I wasted my amount of time today on this? What if it doesn't work? And I think all these things are kind of going on underneath the surface, and that can slow me down. I think for other adults it's the same thing, but I also think we have this interesting situation, I think, when we get older, when it's just assumed that you're kind of better at everything than young people, or as we get older we should know more, we should be better, and there's a further distance to fall by getting it wrong somehow. And I don't think anyone likes unpleasant feelings and sensations. A student asked me once, I was in a school and a girl in year 5, I said, "You've got any questions you want to ask me about poetry?" And one girl asked me a great question last year. She put her hand up and she said, "How do you feel when you start writing a poem?" And I said, "I've not really thought about it. And I think you maybe, because I'm brought in as a poet." This was in Singapore, right? So they'd flown me over and stuff. And I was like, so you're probably going to assume that I'm going to say, "I feel really excited and it's amazing." I said, the first thing I can think of, if I honestly think about that, is I feel afraid. I think, first of all, when I start writing a poem, in some way, I feel uncomfortable. I know that it's going to get uncomfortable. And if I don't want to dive into that, or maybe I don't even sometimes like that feeling when I'm in flow and I'm in a poem and I've left the world behind a bit and I'm just doing it. There's things about that I feel uncomfortable going through that process. And I said, so to be honest, I feel a bit scared sometimes. I feel a bit like nervous. Maybe it won't be as good as anything I've written, or maybe it won't be this. And answering that question for that student made me realise how deep that feeling goes. And I think for a lot of adults, I think as we get older, when you're younger, you have to feel uncomfortable all the time. You're not in charge of what goes on in your life as much. You have to follow the rules of your parents or whoever's looking after you. You don't get to go to bed necessarily when you want to. You don't get to go and do the things you want to do. So it's constant frustrations and discomfort. But when we get older, we kind of get to do whatever we want.
Yeah.
And we can shut out the things we don't like. And I think you can see that people get older, and there's a suggestion, I think, where people maybe get older and they kind of maybe shut out different things that made them a bit more uncomfortable, it was difficult, they didn't like, and they get this kind of, you can end up maybe with this kind of like quite, perhaps a bit of an easy, blander
plateau.
Yeah, existence where I know a lot of people who are older who feel they don't have as many adventures anymore because we don't do things that make us feel
Step
discomfort.
outside, yeah.
So yeah, I that's what I think a bit, and I think as we get adults, we don't do it as much. So whereas kids, you give them exactly the same activity, and they'll burn the walls down with their ideas. They'll just go for it, and they'll be fearless. So yeah, I think a lot of what I do or what I focus on is trying to help myself remove those deep-seated fears of being creative, and helping other people. And year nines and anyone over the age of 18 is the trickiest.
Yeah. Mate, I totally understand it. And what ages were you dealing with at school? You're not that similar?
Yeah, so when I was teaching years 7 to 13. So that's like 11-year-olds up to 18-year-olds.
Yeah, so...
and again, I would say, normally when I go and visit schools, they'll try and get me in front of a bunch of year groups in a day, because you don't want to, you want to try and
throwing yourself in the firing line at loads of parts of your life, because then you're working with them ages, it can be year 9 and so on, and then you went to Don't Flop style.
Yes.
So they're the over 18s, and they're always going to judge you and be a certain way. So.
Yeah. So for people who don't know about this, so I when I left teaching, I started rap battling, and I entered the rap battle circuit, and I met some of the best writers I've ever met in my life in an environment where people get to spend time researching you, like weeks researching you, and to write the most offensive, insulting, painful thing you could ever have to hear and deliver it to your face in front of an audience. and then you get to have your turn going back and forth. And it's like bare knuckle boxing, but with language. And that was the scariest thing I've done. Yeah. And I think that got me interested in fear straight away, but the thing is, you gamify the rap battling.
Has it strengthened you then? Do you feel going through all these parts of your life, because where you're at now, you seem very fearless, and I've put you in front of loads of different faces before, and I've seen you in action, and you're just like, this is me, I'm going to bring my best self to the table. Is that because of your story and your past?
It might be. Because I've failed a lot. I think that's probably it. Like I've had so many. People only ever, like, if they see you do a gig and it goes really well, that's all they see. For me, I've had lessons that have unbelievably bad lessons. I had lessons where, like, kids chucking paper planes, the old classic. Like I was training as a teacher, and the whole class of, we're talking year 8s, like 12-year-olds, tiny little 12-year-olds going like, one girl was like, fuck you. We are not doing anything you say. You're a fucking loser. We just want to make you cry. And that was it. I've had stuff like that. I've had like so many bad lessons. And that was even, I could name a bunch of other things that have gone horribly wrong. I've had rap battles where I've choked entire rounds of a rap battle.
Is that where you just don't remember
You
any
can't remember what
lines,
you're going to say.
Yeah,
I was so tired. I was doing the Edinburgh Fringe. I was doing a show, and I'd had 2 different opponents in 2 days. So the first opponent, I had my material just about there, but the second opponent, I was tired. I choked every round. I choked for at least a little bit of the rap battle.
Ouch.
And if you choke and you don't come with anything, in the Philippines, when you battle, the view is that, like, it's kind of cool in the Philippines. The idea is that when you battle, you summon forth like this kind of spirit animal version of yourself that battles like a spirit animal of your opponent. And if you don't get any bars out, you don't create the spirit animal, and that means there's nothing to soak up. You've got no Pokemon there that's fighting. It's just you, and it means that you're getting absolutely battered. And I really felt that, like, in that battle. It's just like, just hit after hit after hit. I was pretty much like saying sorry to my opponent by the end of the whole battle. And so, whenever I have a gig now, like any kind of gig, pretty much, I'm like, I don't think it can go. Can't even imagine it going worse than those things. And they went badly, and still at the end of the day, go home, go to bed, and things move on. I do get scared sometimes. I do have things on a calendar, and I go, I see it like that's like my boss fight this month. I've got this big gig, I'm working up towards it, and I do think, gosh, I'm going to be really happy when that's over and it's done. But for me, every single time I've done something a bit scary and I've just gone, mate, I'll still go to bed at the end of the night. It's still gonna, do you know what I mean?
I had a really good situation happen fairly recently, but it was just like a psychotherapist. He was doing a couple of days somewhere, doing like a session. Okay, yeah. And he did this great lesson where we're doing like character work. So we're looking at all different parts of ourselves. And it's kind of like the Carl Jung, do you know the shadow work and stuff? But it was a friend of mine that did a podcast ages ago, and I went there, and he really helped me with this small thing, because when I had a really bad patch, I've said everything on this podcast, so I was doing loads of drugs. Okay. Lots and lots and lots. And that actually ended up with like drug-induced psychosis for a while. Okay. And it really put me off doing big audiences and schools and stuff, because after the horrible patch, getting here, I ended up performing at some places, and I'd get triggered and things would happen. So I'd be sort of going to a really weird, just a hole. And it happened really ironically once at a happiness festival. And I was in front of 1,000 people, and I was telling my story and my journey into poetry and why I do what I do and why I love it. I can't remember the exact thing that happened, but I went quiet and it just went whoop. and I was in that place. I call it Alice in Wonderland syndrome. I was there and everything was bigger and people were looking. Of course they were looking at me because I was on the stage performing. Yeah. But for probably...
Did you disassociate? Could you see yourself from outside? Look, is it...
Not quite that. It's more... You go into like an acidy space. So everyone's like faces are warping and they're all looking at you but laughing at you, not with you. It's very like paranoia style stuff.
Okay, wow, yeah.
So I was heavily in there, man. Yeah. And for a year, I wouldn't put myself on a stage after that. I was just out of it. And I went to this session with him, and he said that, well, what actually happened? And I was telling him all these things of what happened and the faces, and he going, hey, what actually happened? And I was like, well, I got sweaty, and I probably looked a little bit dazed, and I really thought about it. If somebody else was looking at me from afar, what would they have seen? Yeah. And they would have just seen a lad that's slightly confused. I got on with it. I got through it. Yeah. And I don't think I gave off too much. Yeah. But really, that's all they would have seen. Yeah. And when I thought about that, what actually happened, it was like, oh yeah, the worst thing that really happened that day was I just maybe looked a bit confused and walked off.
That you gave a kind of slightly maybe forgettable set to someone. Do you know what I mean? That they had that you weren't the highlight of their day.
But in my head for a year, I'd built a story up of all these things have happened and the terribleness of the faces and the warping of the building and everything was bigger and faster and smaller. And he's like, mate, you've just built a massive story up in your head. Let it go. It's funny, isn't it?
You can let your mind run with it and get more... Yeah, I can absolutely understand that. When I used to rap battle, I used to be nervous about the idea of kind of battling some of the biggest names. You know, I'd be like, that would be a bad idea. Just battle guys who are not that experienced or that good. It's a bit less stressful. Because you play out in your mind how much you're going to get wrecked and how awful it's going to be. I got asked to go to the Philippines and battle Looney, who's like the biggest rap battler in the scene out there. And I was like, because it all happened and Red Bull had got hold of me to do it and they wanted to do the whole thing. And I was like, I can't really say no. It's such a ridiculous opportunity to get to go and do it. I remember being sat on the flight. It was crazy because we had, I think, 6 members of the team flying over to the Philippines, all the equipment, so much equipment on the plane for filming. I'm pretty sure it cost Red Bull over £500,000 to make this doc episode.
Wow.
And the deal was I was only able to prep about 60% of the material once I landed over the 2 weeks leading up to the battle event, which is not very long in battles to get the written and it learnt. Whilst we're filming a whole documentary over there. And I remember being sat on the flight just thinking,
What am I doing?
oh, what am I doing? I'm so like, and in a way, just not having any time to really think about it because we had to get on with it meant we bundled on, we got towards the event, and somehow, I went up against this guy with millions of views. I think there's loads of reaction videos to the battle and stuff. Did the whole battle with him.
Did you win that one?
It was unjudged, and some people think I won it. I think in some ways it's tricky because like he's got such a home crowd advantage, and they love him, understandably so. But also, the battle was in English. That's not his first language. That's like his third language. So straight away, I don't even think even if it was going well, like so basically if it was going really well for him. He's got a massive home crowd advantage. No one knows who I am.
Yeah.
Like, it's harder for him to come up with stuff about me, of course, as well. But there's that. But then there's also on the other side of it, he's battling in his third language. Like, I don't think I could really ever claim to have, like, got a win off of it if it had gone mad my way.
Okay,
Do you know what I mean? So it was a really fun exchange back and forward. But we went off, finished it. And he was great. But I don't really think there was, like... any need to be afraid of being in that situation. And if I'd really thought about it, I'd been freaking out. I think I am. If anyone wants to watch the documentary, it's called Mark Grist Battles the World. It's online. It's like an hour-long documentary. You do see me looking pretty scared a lot of the time as it's going. But I think just doing stuff like that.
That's a slight part of your persona, though, isn't it? As well, I really enjoyed that, especially in your podcast. It came slight. It wasn't like
bit fish out of
things,
water, but yeah.
Just
I think
situations.
Do you know, this is probably not... Well, I don't know if it's great or not. I met with like a literary agent a long time ago, and he talked to me about branding. And he said, like, whether you like it or not, you're kind of a brand. And you will stand for certain things.
Yeah.
And you might want to think, what are the 3 words you would like your brand to represent? And then you could just think about those things. And I was like, I don't know. And I thought about words, and I remember thinking, what would be kind of cool brand words, or what would I like to represent as an artist? And I like the idea of like creativity. I was like, I feel like I'm kind of pro creativity, pro like playing games and like having fun. And I'd like to think maybe bravery. I thought maybe that's it, because I kind of like trying to get away from fear and throw myself into it. So for me, that was it. I think it was like creativity, playfulness, and bravery.
That's a great workshop for kids. That is.
It's not bad, is it? Because I think what is your brand, your personal brand? So if you're listening to this right now, that's hey.
Just
pause
idea.
The podcast. 60
What's
seconds.
Your brand?
What's your personal
logo?
brand? What's your brand when you're chilled out, and what's your brand when you're stressed out? Right?
Mate, I really like that.
What could you kind of fix about your brand when you're stressed out?
Well, let's dive down the lane then. So we talked a lot about the Don't Flop.
Yeah.
Now we're getting into where you're at. Because, mate, you've done the podcast. I didn't know about that documentary, actually. I'll be watching that. Was that quite a while ago?
Yeah, it was quite a while ago. It was. They made it online. They were going to make a TV channel, just like Dave or whatever. But they didn't know how to make a TV channel. So they made loads of content at this time, including this show pilot. And then they didn't have any channel to put it on. So they just jacked all the series. But I think it's good. It's an hour long.
That's on YouTube.
It's on. No, it's. I think there are battles from it on YouTube, but the documentary I think is on Red Bull's own channel, Red Bull TV.
Do you have to pay? Is it a subscription?
No,
for
I think you can just find it if you just search Mark Grist Battles the.
I'll be watching that. That's wicked.
Honestly, it's pretty good.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's all right.
I can imagine it if you're on it, mate. It's gonna be.
Thanks. I think. I'm probably the least good thing about it, but the film team is amazing. The guy who directed it. He used to do. Did you ever see Dirty Sanchez back in the day?
Yeah, of course.
Like he made that. So like so he's constantly. There's stuff that keeps happening I'm not expecting. It's not as bad as Dirty Sanchez, but there's like extra things that I'm surprised by. And
is it really well made? Are you happy with the?
Very much so.
Yeah,
My main focus was I didn't want it to. I was I really, really wanted to show that the rap battlers were clever. That was my main focus. I didn't want to have something that suggested...
And not come across as like a gimmick. And this...
No, I wanted to show, because I really think rap battling is a really, really clever and interesting, quite sophisticated art form. Yet it's like a gutter art form in the sense that you can't ever tidy it up. There'll always be another way to kind of keep keep making it like so you can do and say whatever you want.
Was there quite a heavy argument at the time to say the other of that, the polar? Were people sort of besmirching it and talking of it of a very like?
Yeah, I got a lot of people. Not a lot of people. I remember I went to do Latitude once in the poetry arena, and I did my poetry set. And that's kind of what people expect me to do a lot of the time. And I had some poets, maybe more kind of academic type poets, chatting with me, having a drink afterwards, and they would say they say they like my work or whatever, but just very disappointed that I'm giving voice and platform to these rappers, and
I mean
that's not the same level of writing.
That's a stupid thing to say. I suppose this is where my head's at as well, and I'll metaphorize it, which is a word, everybody, into boxing. But you see now, I love boxing, and I've loved boxing all my life. And I don't really mind the new YouTube crazy stuff going on at the minute. Again, it's just a way to showcase the form of boxing and the great sport that it is. But then you go down the line and you see the people that are watching it and all the kids that are coming here and schools that you go to. They don't necessarily see it as an art form. I love. Somebody said this about boxing once. They said it's the highest level consequence. No, the highest level problem solving at maximum consequence. Dude, when they said highest level problem solving at maximum consequence, I was like, that's what boxing is.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's a beautiful thing on that. But then I suppose when it filters down into schools and into young minds, they just see it as knocking the shit out of each other. That's what it is.
Yeah.
And can you see that in the same term of the words when you're giving it to one another?
Yeah.
Does it filter down the line and it just becomes being a dick to one another or unkind and unpleasant?
It depends. So you can say anything in a battle. I've seen and heard people say really horrible things in battles. But often when I think people say things that are like particularly bad or like they fall into those brackets, it's a bit like when people say to me that those, like rap is sexist or homophobic and things like that. Yes, 100% those things happen, but that's because it's a reflection of society and we have problems with those things in society, right? And that's where it's kind of like stemming through from. What I think interesting about rap battling is you can see how the language has changed and how the scene has adjusted as over the last 20 years. Certain things that maybe would be said in the 90s or the turn of the century, you wouldn't say in a rap battle now because you need the audience to be with you. And as a society, they represent what is okay and what is not okay with the crowd. I've seen people get booed out for saying things in battles.
Really?
Yeah, because they just said something that's been like, maybe it's like incredibly offensive, but also there's no skill involved in it. There's no creativity. So there's no merit. It's just bad. It's just a horrible thing.
Yeah.
I've seen battles get shut down over that. Where like,
Right,
and it had
okay.
to be because the crowd's turned on someone in relation to it. So I think rap battling is a really interesting thing because there is some bad stuff that happens sometimes, but there's a direct audience impact around it. So you can kind of see what our society is okay with people saying and doing. I mean, even if you look at something like, but rap battling exists in lots of different contexts. Whenever supposedly, I chat to a lot of like linguistic professors about this. Wherever there has been a patriarchal system, there's always been rap battling in one sense or another. Viking lords used to brag in rhyme about all the stuff they got up to when they met with each other. Yeah, you used to have flyting, which is where old Scottish lairds would rinse each other and attack each other. There were two Scottish lairds who had this epic kind of flyting contest. Even like, I think, was it King John or King James? There was a king at the time who took part in these flightings. They would accuse each other of all these different things.
Wow, that's cool.
And yeah, and even if you look at Prime Minister's questions, that is a rap battle format, right? That is essentially two people jousting.
I'm not a
verbally.
fan of Donald Trump, but he's bloody good at it, isn't
No,
he?
yeah, well, yeah, those things, that's something else. But I think he's I would be more concerned about the stuff that he has said, certainly, than what goes on in a battle context. But
hearing you.
But the thing I think you get as a teacher, and I think any teacher would agree with this, I find it disappointing sometimes that maybe other writers or other people who work within the arts don't have this same perspective, which as a teacher, you regularly are able to separate not approving of certain things within a piece of writing a child has done or a student has done. Like they might rap, right? But they might write a whole rap, some poetry about setting fire to the school building or something like that. I would rather they weren't writing their piece about setting fire to the school building, but just because it's my personal palette, I don't like that aspect of it. I can still acknowledge the craft that's gone into it and that they're creating something and it's interesting what's going on. And I kind of apply that lens to all the other things that I
just
encounter.
Hating on education, which needs a little bit of hate here.
Exactly,
and there as well.
It probably comes from somewhere and everywhere else. So when I see the stuff about rap battling, I'm like, yes, there are some, although I would say at the moment as well, the current scene, the UK battle scene at the moment is popping. There's some amazing battles.
Okay.
Really high level writing. If I was to go back into battling now, I'd get whooped.
Hang on, is that a thing? Have you just dropped that?
I've considered it a bit in the last year, but don't think I can do it. But it's probably
This is the bit I'm clipping out now.
Yeah,
Mark Grist is back, ladies and gentlemen.
I don't know if I'm back to do it, but I would say this: the scene is really strong. The writing, I think, is better than ever. Just watch some title matches. Watch Shuffle T versus Shotty Horror. If you watch what's going on within those matches, it's really high level.
As an outsider, really, what are you looking for?
Crafty versus Quill. That's another one I'd suggest. Yeah,
Crafty versus Quill.
Yeah.
I like that.
Both really, really good matches.
Is that like rappers versus poets? It's that,
no, Crafty and Quill are both battlers in Don't Flop. Crafty's the UK rap battle champ. Quill is now, but this was the title match they had against each other, and it was great writing, really cool, really great, clever concepts throughout. I'm pretty sure like a range of like great writers are referenced in all of these pieces. They're attacking each other's writing style, the craft, how they're kind of hitting things. They're cracking some good jokes in there and humour that you would just make you feel you're watching like the Montagues versus Capulets, back in Romeo and Juliet. It's phenomenal.
And how do they judge it? Is it more audience reaction? Is that what?
No, audience reaction definitely plays a part, but what would happen is you have a bunch of different battlers or people who really understand the craft of it would then each judge it. And normally most people judge a battle on the 3 rounds. So they'd give like the first round to someone, second round to someone, third round. So you kind of work out who won by kind of doing it like that.
Mate, this is funny because I'm trying to fit what could be a 4-hour podcast into a 45-minute thing.
I know we can chat for ages. That's enough on battling. But yeah, if anyone here is listening and wants to learn more about battling, I would honestly say you were in a great position. Now is the time to like dip into it.
I'm going to be going and watching a few. So
good
I'll be in touch
situation,
with you and I'll ask you some to go and watch. Do you keep up with the scene then and find out when it's on?
Yeah. I was chatting to some of the some guys from the leagues the other day. I know that the Don't Flop birthday's in the autumn.
Surely you'll be on that.
No. I would like to go along to it. I think it's kind of funny, the idea though. Part of me thinks it'd be really funny to go and rap battle to promote like picture books, because that's what I now do. Like basically like a guy promoting these books for like 3. No, but like.
Have you got one with you?
I have, yeah,
mate.
But I did think that would be funny, like judging a rap battle or like having a rap battle and being like, so yeah, I've written books for like 3 to 7-year-olds.
Well, that's kind of how I wanted to go with a podcast, really, because I wanted to talk about your journey in writing and poetry, and it's just so polar to where you're at now. And what would you say that book's aimed at, the new one? Is it 0 to 5?
I think it's probably 3 to 7-year-olds. So I've been doing the battling stuff, and I love battling, but you spend a lot of time preparing material, and then you rock up, and anything can happen. Like you could even have, and there had been times around about this time where footage was going missing sometimes of battles, and if you spend all that time prepping, or your opponent doesn't show up, or they lose the footage, or something about it doesn't work, the audiences had one gig in a nightclub, and the audience were just so drunk, it was just like not a very good vibe. So it's you can't guarantee what's coming out of it, and it's fun having rap battles, and it's a fun challenge, but there's not really, for me at least, there wasn't really sustainable income in doing it, right? So I just hit a point and I thought, how can you try and like get poetry in books on the shelves? And I don't think the way that I write poetry, which is mostly for performance, is necessarily going to be for adults making its way onto bookshelves. But yeah, I got a literary agent, Rachel, who's amazing, and chatted with her, and she said, have you thought about focusing on like children's picture books? Because
how did that initially sound to you?
I was like, great. I've heard some other poets that I really like, who have done stuff with picture books, saying that they felt a bit unsure about doing picture books, like people might look down on them, or it was like a low form of writing. And I can't understand for us. Like I still love those writers; they're great. But I think that's cool. But like, I've never felt that even for like a second. The idea of
not a flicker.
I'm fully there for writing for young readers.
Yeah.
I think because I was writing a lot of poems outside the rap battling with quite political messages. I think it's quite hard really to write a poem and share it with people and not have a political message about how to live your life in some way. Like to try and write a poem that doesn't say something about how we should behave towards each other or something about what we should value or what we should try and...
It's going to be quite elusive, isn't it?
It's quite hard to do that and not have some message in there. And I found I was writing pieces that were maybe a little bit more political at points and say, we should be kind to... people who are less well off than us, or who are struggling. Maybe people who are, who are refugees fleeing wars should be cared for and supported in some ways. And suddenly you say something like this, like adults are turning around, going, like getting angry with you and acting as though like the things you're saying are really, really.
Yeah, I've been punched once for that. Is immigration killing the nation? I said it wasn't in the poem, but I went to like an old EDL place because we're in Ripley, which is one of the towns where the EDL came from, like Ripley, Heanor, Codnor, a branch in the EDL, and I performed it because I hated performing to the converted a lot of the time. So I thought, you know what, I'm just gonna bang it out here, and it was a night we were putting on, so that we were getting them money and doing all that for this pub, and then one of the old boys there that had been living in this pub basically for all his life just went. He spat at me first, and I was like, "What are you doing?" And then he just came over and wellied me one. It was a good story though, but I had all my mates there, and they all just dived on him.
Oh jeez. Okay. So I'm not certain, but I believe probably this is gonna sound crazy. That same guy, if he's got a nephew or a niece, would probably have bought a book for that nephew or niece about being kind and sharing and about saying please and thank you, or about like the messages that we want to impart to our kids. Even those of us who maybe have like particularly right-wing political views ourselves, often we agree that we should give our kids messages that are like maybe not that like refugees are scroungers looking to kind of like wreck our system or something like that's not what that's not the messages that we put in for kids. And those same I got a bit tired sometimes of having to be what felt so political in my work and constantly when the internet is so full of people so ready to be angry all the time, being a poet has an extra level of being maybe a bit tiring because you're constantly putting out a political thought all the time about stuff. That suddenly to be able to go, I'm going to write stuff for small kids. And suddenly, and I found this, it's totally changed everything. Everyone's really lovely. Everyone agrees that these messages are like really good things for kids to have.
What a nice environment to immerse yourself in.
Yeah, and it's super nice. I'm really enjoying that about it. It's a slow moving and fast moving industry because I wrote this first book that I've got.
Hold it.
Oh, do you want to sit? Check it out.
Hold it. Come on. Oh,
Woof, there you go.
Finger it up into this one right here, mate. There you Lovely.
Rhinos Don't Cry. I wrote it in 2018. So obviously we had COVID and everything since then. But it's a long process getting it agreed with Bloomsbury's, who's published it, which is amazing.
Than the Harry Potters and
100%. It was. I turned up in Bloomsbury.
You live in a dream, man.
I remember turning up in their offices, having sent them the work in to meet them.
Was it insane?
It's all like wood panelled walls and like pictures of like first editions of Harry Potter and everything. And you go up through these winding staircases, you get totally lost, and you go into this little room, and you just feel very like, But we got it agreed. At the moment we looked into 3 of these, and it takes a long time to get them made. Chris Jevons, who's the illustrator, has done like an awesome job with the illustrations.
Insane.
Super cool. The message of this, it's called Rhinos Don't Cry, and it's all about a little rhino called Milo who decides one day that he's not going to cry anymore. Because it's not nice crying, is it? Like, you wouldn't want to do it. He also sees like a movie star that he really admires, Spike O'McCree, who's got a big Mohican haircut, who says that's what rhinos are tough, right? So rhinos don't cry, and he says rhinos shouldn't cry in this movie. And so Milo goes, yeah, I'm not going to cry anymore.
They're
And
very irresponsible.
yeah, well, I'll tell you what, Spyco comes good in the end. So he starts trying not to cry, and it's tricky, but he works. That's what he starts doing, and then his cat goes missing. It's very difficult then for Milo. They go out looking for the cat. They bump into who else but Spyco McCree,
You're joking.
who Milo explains what's been happening, and as he does, he can't help it. He just starts crying, and then much to his surprise, Spyco McCree starts to cry too, and he's really affected by what he says. And Spyco McCree explains that that actually, like, there are some things you might see in the media and portrayals in the media that are a bit older. We may have changed our perspective on these things since then. Yeah, I know.
How'd you say that to kids?
I know, but basically we've realized, that now we realize that adults and kids, we all need to cry sometimes, and it's something we all have to go through. And in fact, sometimes crying can be brave to have the courage to cry sometimes. And so they cry, and guess what? They make enough noise that they manage to find Pickles the cat, who hears them crying. So
I knew
they come back.
Pickles was going to return.
There you go. So it all comes good in the end. And I've really enjoyed working on it. So yeah.
Did they give you full freedom? They said, we want a book for kids.
Okay. Yeah.
You just go create a concept.
So actually what happened with this was I wrote the story and I felt I was onto something. I really enjoyed writing it. And it's got this kind of this bounce, and the story seemed to work. And so I sent it to them as it was, along with a couple of other texts. They came back and they said, of the ones I sent them, they said, can we work on this? Can we make 2 more? And I was like, okay, yeah, cool. So we've tweaked it, and they've definitely helped me improve it. You go through these kind of rounds of edits, and actually you do a lot of editing, and this is why I love it. You have very few words to work with, and because you have very few words to work with, and you're trying to pack so much into each page turns become important. You often want to reveal information on a page turn, or you want to kind of build anticipation, so we want to turn the page, and you want to write things that are very active, so you're giving some good kind of supporting text for Chris to make the illustrations bounce and pop and have this energy. There's this great kind of synergy you've got to have between the images and the writing. So I'm learning loads, and the tweaks and everything has been super cool. The second text took a long time. I kept rewriting it. It's called Bears Don't Get Scared. It's about a little bear called Bella, and she is going to become afraid for the first time when she's going to be cast in the school play, and her granny and her friends will help her to kind of work through it. And I'm really, really, really excited about that one, because I think we've got lots more characters.
So there's 3 altogether?
Yes, but we're trying to expand the world with each book. So hopefully these will all live in their own society. We're kind of Marvel Universing it.
That's similar to what Muzzy's doing as well.
Is it?
He's got the odd octopus.
Yeah, I saw. Yeah, I like that one. Yeah.
But again, I think that's on materialism.
Yeah.
But then the odd octopus, and he's doing ocean version. So
great.
You and him should do something. Wow.
Yeah, we could. Yeah, we could do Marvel DC crossover.
You've got
or
a
something.
full-on universe developing together.
Yeah.
And your own universes, but I love it, man.
So yeah, we'll see. And so for me, this has been wicked, because now, this has only been out for about 2 or 3 weeks.
How easy was it to write? Because it's simple language, but to really nail the fact that you're going to keep everyone entertained, it's not going to be too simple.
Oh, it was great it's
message.
Really challenging. I can't say enough how challenging I found it from different things that I've written in the past, because every single word is poured over, everything is analysed. I go and work with students in secondary school now, and I take a copy of the book and I take them different stages of our notes in PDF, and we bring up on the screen, and they can see the original text, then the edits on the text, then the first pencil drawings, and we're all realising we've got to change some of the text so it can fit as it's going through. And there's about 12 stages of it being built up over time to get to where it is. So yeah, it's super cool.
Does it ever get tedious for you though as well? Do you know when you're sort of analysing, or you've got to really think for every single word to fit perfectly? Do you love that process, or...?
There's some bits that get really tricky. For me, I think... I've likened it, when I've been writing the second one, to being like a plumber. And I feel like what I'm doing is each page is its own like network of piping that's connecting from the previous page to the next page. And the aim is to try and keep as much water flowing really fast and in a really fun way through every page of the book, and not to like lose any.
That's a lovely image.
Yeah, and that's what I'm trying to do everywhere is get the piping fitted. The other thing is you're going to have people reading these books. Some of these, it's going to be read by adults, and some adults will be incredibly tired when they're reading them out. Some adults may themselves be a bit nervous about reading a book out aloud. Not everyone has had the same experiences of education. So you're trying to write something that any adult hopefully can sit down with. And I also think of it as being a bit like I'm kind of giving them a skateboard to like perform some tricks with. And when they read it out, they can just follow what's being said and feel a bit proud of themselves because they land a few cool rhymes, right? And they kind of have a nice bounce to it and everything else. So I think the only thing I found tricky,
into rapping. I love it. Nice.
But what was tricky is when you send it off and maybe your editors come back sometimes and they go, maybe change this for this, and you go, and you feel like all the like the rhythm and the play is just gone from the suggestions, and so it's tricky to kind of bounce those.
And do you have to stand up for yourself a little bit at times then?
At times, yeah, I think so. I think sometimes I have found it moving into the space. Sometimes, I think people think you don't know much. You've not made. There's not as much thought behind the decisions you've made. I think there's been points where I've had to really kind of push on certain things, and it's been so good to then see those things being like well received. I don't want to go on about it, but like we've had reviews, like a lot of reviews, and all the reviews for it have been like really, really good and positive.
You have the independent
Independence Book of the Week we got, and
boy.
I know we had a few Book of the Weeks, and like it's really lovely when you read reviewers' work and their children have reviewed the books as well and they've shared it. But there's been loads of them. So yeah, if anyone wants to, if you want to buy someone a nice book that's fun and energetic and deals with quite a difficult topic in like a kind of light-hearted and fun and entertaining way, I think Rhinos Don't Cry. I really think. I hope you'd enjoy it.
Do you see that developing more as well? Are you thinking of getting that animated? Would you go further in that?
I mean, if they ever wanted to, I'd be open to it. I think at the moment, my main focus that I've realised is I just need to do everything I need to do my end to make sure that second book is in the shops next July.
I'm with you.
And it's good. And it's like really good. And we're stepping it up in some way. So I've been rewriting Bears a lot. We've got to work out the third book now. I think the second is locked.
Do you have the third?
We got a concept for the third, but we don't know which character to follow. We're introducing a lot of new characters in the second one. We're trying to bring in lots of the characters in the class.
Will the Rhino show up in the other one?
Milo's in. Yeah, Milo's going to be in the late. He's in the second one as well. Yeah, he's playing a tree, I believe, in the play, and he's super excited about it.
Is it going to be like not Alice in Wonderland, Wizard of Oz, where he's learnt bravery, he's learnt this, and they all come together and they've learned together?
I do think each individual child within the class or within the town, it might not even be that they're all in the same school, they're each going to learn something. Yeah, I think they're each going to have something and so we've got some characters we're introducing. We got
come together in union though as well.
Yeah, we've got a little character called Sydney who's a sloth, and he keeps, he's a bit sleepy obviously, and I like the idea that he doesn't. A lot of families have difficulty with children not wanting to sleep in their own bed.
Yeah, oh mate, don't get me started.
Yeah. So potentially a character like that who maybe, but I'd like to go a bit deeper. Maybe it's not just about sleeping in their own space, but just feels uncomfortable being alone. Doesn't know how to like be content on their own. Do you know what I mean?
Have you got kids of your own yet?
No, I haven't, and I think that's a challenge with these. So I spend some time like visiting friends with kids. And I just like enjoy watching their kids. I particularly enjoy watching kids having. It sounds really bad. I kind of really enjoy like seeing kids have a bit of a meltdown.
Yeah.
And like seeing the process and how it builds up and how it goes through that.
It doesn't take much.
I know it doesn't take much at all. And what I love is like even if it's something like amazing, they're doing something great. They're like playing with the toy that they love, or they're just hanging out with some friends. They're really having a great time. I'm like, oh, this is going to lead to a meltdown because you're doing something you love and it has to stop.
So in the moment,
and we got to like at some point we're going to go there. So I spend a lot of time with that, and I'm sure my friends have at points have gone to me, oh, I'm embarrassed, and I'm like, no, this is great. I'm really enjoying it. Can we have another one? Like, this is cool. So I'm enjoying that. Whilst having no personal responsibility for sorting anything.
Has it not got you broody then? It's not put you in that
I
place?
don't know. We've talked about kids, but I don't know. I think we would like to have kids. I think, but I think at the moment, we'll just keep getting one step in front of.
You're a man on a mission at the minute.
Yeah.
So that's where you're going to be spending most of your time at the minute, in projects with the kids' books and doing the sort of stuff that we're doing tonight on the farm and schools and.
I think so. I'd like to get.
Do you ever spread yourself too thin? Because you seem like you do so much.
Do you think so?
Colossal.
I don't think I do that much.
Really. I suppose I'm looking at from afar and I've seen everything you've done on the journey. I'm like, wow. What?
So I do you know what I met a poet I really liked and admired a while ago. I bumped into her.
Thank you very much.
And I said, hey, I think you're doing so well at the moment on social media, doing all this great stuff. And she said, Mark, I'm doing awful. I'm doing really badly. And I was like, I think completely the opposite. Everything I see, I feel like you're doing really well. And she said, that's really interesting. I'm really pleased you said that, because I've really felt like I'm not doing very well this year and how it's been going. I was like, oh. And it made me go, oh, we're not always the best judge of how things are going for us. Does that make sense? Or how people perceive
the truth
it's
of what
going.
you've seen on social
So
media.
when you say that, I feel like this month, because school's broken up,
yeah.
I've been playing some computer games. I've been
Go and watch the game, man.
Resident Evil 4. I've been playing Resident Evil 4. It's been awesome.
Did you ever try the Harry Potter, the recent Hogwarts Legacy?
I've not tried it. I feel like I want to hold out until it's reduced a bit.
No, man.
But I got Baldur's Gate 3
quid it.
like yesterday, and my wife Lucy and I we do the classic. I control it, or she makes the decision.
Yeah.
So we're doing a lot of that. And I've been trying to write a bit, just poems I want to write. And so I've been enjoying that. But I've been pretty chilled this summer. I think when it gets into the autumn, I'll get busy again.
Awesome, man. Yeah,
I think so. I just like to be really good at helping people get rid of fear and get writing. I think that's a cool thing to focus
It's
on.
a beautiful message to end it on, because there's a bunch of kids out there waiting for you.
We need to go. Yeah, sorry, I've really rambled on.
They
but
want
really nice
you
to
right
chat.
now. But dude, where can people see the book, find your story, see everything you're about?
If you just search for my name, Mark Grist, you can find out any of the stuff. If you want to check out rap battles, you can. They're pretty old now. I've got poems and things on my YouTube channel. Mark Grist Battles the World is obviously a cool documentary.
Mark, I've got to get you back for like a full big episode, because there's so many avenues we could have gone. You're so interesting.
Oh, thank you. I think I didn't really stick at any one thing that long. I think I was going to jump around from thing to thing. But yeah, this is
I love
the
way you think, man.
Yeah,
I love
picture
what you're
books,
about.
news thing. If you want to check this stuff out, I think they're good. I think they're solid. And,
I'll be the judge of that.
Yeah, I think you'll like them. Yeah.
That's Mikey.
Yeah.
I'll leave you on this. Guys, you've been a part of the Old Farm Bus, Back of the Bus Sessions podcast. Thank you for being here, and remember this, just be nice to one another. You're a beautiful set of buggers. See you later.